Topping today's news, Bahamians living in the United States illegally urged to return home. The government cracking down on illegal fishing charters from the United States. A former police and former Defense Force officer facing long prison sentences related to drug smuggling. And shantytown demolitions continue. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jerino Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Multiple videos of the United States Immigration, Customs Enforcement, or ICE teams aggressively arresting individuals suspected of being in the United States illegally have been going viral for nearly a year now. The Bahamas Minister of Foreign Affairs, Fred Mitchell, is urging Bahamians living in the United States illegally to return home or risk being deported and possibly never returning to the U.S. again, being put on a stop list. Mr. Mitchell also shared his opinion on the new policy decisions by the United States as it relates to their immigration matters.
Any person who's not a national of the United States and a Bahamian citizen ought to be legally in the United States, and all of the strictures which they have to remain in the United States legally, you ought to follow. We can have no complaint as such about the rules that another country sets for you to enter, assuming, of course, those rules don't talk about race or any of those kinds of issues. But where that doesn't arise and the policies are fair and rational and applied across the board to everyone without discrimination, it's the responsibility of someone who's in another state to be there lawfully. And if you're not there lawfully, the safest thing is to come back home, try and get your matters straight. My view is, notwithstanding all of the stuff you see in the public domain, the United States is largely a fairly easy country to lawfully migrate to. There are procedures for doing it, and I think you ought to utilize the lawful means of doing so and not take the law in your own hands.
The Minister for Foreign Service, Fred Mitchell. Meanwhile, Minister of Agriculture and Marine Resources Jomo Campbell said that 2 American men accused of planning a string of at least 17 illegal fishing charter excursions to the Bahamas were taken into custody following months of investigation involving several agencies.
The Bahamas will not tolerate illegal fishing in our waters. Operation Dragnet resulted in the seizure of a 65.4-foot fishing vessel, the confiscation of fishing equipment, and the arrest of 2 Florida residents who are now facing charges under Bahamian law. Investigations revealed that the suspects conducted illegal fishing charter trips on at least 17 occasions, 17 within our territorial waters.
According to Mr. Campbell, this is the 3rd largest arrest in 18 months. He mentioned that a boat measuring 65.4 feet was also seized. He also mentioned that the fact that this investigation started in October of 2025 is significant because it illustrates the degree of diligence, intelligence collection, and ongoing interagency coordination added to successful results. A case that can be complicated, but they made it simple by working together.
A single offshore fishing charter of this kind typically spans a minimum of 5 days and is often priced at approximately $45,000 per trip. $45,000. These activities therefore represent not only, as Mr. Sensi said, a serious violation of our fisheries regulations and national sovereignty, but also a substantial economic loss to Bahamian fishermen, licensed charter operators, and communities that rely on the sustainable use of our marine resources. Sustainable being the key word.
A team comprised of officers from the Department of Marine Resources, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, Department of Immigration, Bahamas Customs, and the Port Authority conducted the investigation. According to Mr. Campbell, the operation is part of a continuous effort by the government and other marine and wildlife organizations to improve compliance and protect the nation's marine resources. The government has officially moved ahead with a major runway upgrade at the Rock Sound International Airport, signing a contract aimed at improving air access and long-term connectivity for South Eleuthera. The work will include the reconstruction and overlay of the existing runway. The contract has been awarded to Bahamian company Apex Paving at a cost of just over $14 million. Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for Tourism, Investments and Aviation, Chester Cooper, says the investment comes at a time when Eleuthera continues to see strong growth in air arrivals and economic activity.
At the end of November 2025, overall sea and air arrivals to the island showed an increase of 45% over 2019 and 22% to the same period in 2024. In fact, more significantly, foreign air arrivals to the island of Eleuthera reflected a 31% increase over 2019 and a 4% increase compared to the same period last year. But notwithstanding the impressive tourism performance, the growth and equitable distribution of foreign air arrivals in South Eleuthera remains constrained by capacity and by infrastructure. Today's signing will therefore go a long, long way in attracting new airlift and new opportunity to the island of Eleuthera and Rock Sound, South Eleuthera in particular.
Minister of Works and Family Island Affairs and a Member of Parliament for South and Central Eleuthera, Clay Sweeting, says the project represents an investment in safety, resilience, and economic opportunity for the entire island of Eleuthera.
It's not simply about signing a contract today. It's about reaffirming our commitment as a government to the people of Eleuthera and to the continued modernization of airport infrastructure across the country. Rock Sound International Airport has long served as a vital gateway for South Eleuthera, supporting residents, businesses, and visitors alike. This runway improvement project represents a deliberate and forward-looking investment, one that strengthens connectivity, improves safety, and positions this airport to meet international standards and future demand.
The Rock Sound Airport project is part of a broader national push to modernize Family Island infrastructure. The project is estimated to be completed in 12 months once that work begins. Prosecutors in New York have suggested that Darren Alexander Roker, a former Royal Bahamas Defense Force officer accused of playing a major role in a conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States, should serve a prison term no less than 5 years, although he faces a maximum of 20 years. Judge Gregory Woods, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, said the sentence imposed on Roker should send a clear message to other Bahamians and police officers as well as government officials considering drug trafficking that such conduct will not be tolerated. Roker originally pleaded not guilty but changed his plea to guilty. Roker's attorney petitioned the court for a lenient sentence, revealing that Roker is terminally ill with aggressive prostate cancer. However, the judge noted that he would be able to receive proper medical treatment while in prison. The judge also stated that the Bahamas has become a major transit hub for massive quantities of cocaine flooding the United States, with the aid and involvement of high-ranking Bahamian officials who have abused their position of trust and authority to protect and enable drug traffickers, lining their own pockets in the process. And finally, in this segment on Thursday, former Police Staff Association Chairman, Assistant Superintendent of Police, Sonny Miller, was remanded to the Fox Hill Prison, where he will await sentencing for his role in a drug trafficking scheme. Miller, who appeared before Acting Assistant Chief Magistrate Shaka Seville, will return to court for his sentencing hearing on February 25th. Miller was convicted of 10 counts concerning the seizure of 72 kilos of cocaine and 15 kilos of marijuana on the island of Acklands in June of 2022. At the time, Miller was the officer in charge of Acklands, Crooked Island, and Long Key, when prosecutors say he assisted 2 Colombians who flew the drugs into the Bahamas from Venezuela. The two Colombians agreed to testify against Miller in return for lighter sentences. They were both sentenced to 5 years in prison. You're watching JCN TV News. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back following these commercials.